burner. Even with you for a burner. The key lay right walking. You know that it's on the furnace. If I bet you beat you. Had they bought you, fucking no PT, riding for wallet. Key lay right walking. You know that it's on the furnace. Timmy Turner. Even with you for a burner. The key lay right walking. You know that.
In today's tutorial, we'll be looking at Tron effects in Cinema 4D and Octane. Now this is really simple. It looks more complicated, but if you are familiar with Octane at all, taking one look at this, you'll know how I've done it. And I'll show you how I approached it, and then you can go crazy with it. It doesn't take a lot of guide to grasp it. I was messing around, I was trying to make dirt on a Lamborghini, and you know, here's I'm saying it, I messed with the dirt map, and I was like, wait, I've got all these lines around the car. It kind of, what if I put an emission on that? It would look like a Tron, like a Tron car, and that's what I did. And then I just sort of ditched the scene I was in and went a bit crazy with this Tron scene. Now I will show you the floor material I was using as well. I've kind of put placeholders on everything right now, which I will go back and just slap that on there. I've got all my selection tags. I'll show you everything that I did. It's so simple. And here's the floor material, which you saw at the start. And I went in Photoshop, I made a quick grid. I did make it black. You just make sure it's PNG. I'll show you quickly now actually. You can see the grid there. I made it black on, so PNG, it was transparent in the background. And then I realized, oh shit, that's not gonna work. So I slapped an invert on it and made it white. So to save yourself that, you can make it white or click that button. I don't know why I didn't do that the first time around. I essentially went, and you can see up here, I got my scene, simplified it, made it a little easier to follow for the tutorial. So to get started, I'm going to show you the main material, which is this. This is the Tron material. Now you can see it's got an RGB spectrum, which is blue. You could use any color. I was thinking about orange, that would have been pretty cool. Going into a black body emission on both channels, and into the emission on about 15 power. You don't need a lot. And then a metal texture with a really high index, and just a, you know, surface imperfection going into the roughness. And I clamped it down in the gradient just to get some little kind of scratches and smudges around the car. And that is powered by a dirt map, which is what's giving you the Tron effect and limiting all this glow into the dirt. So we'll get started and we'll make that. Now for the wheels, I did use a different material. And the reason for that is it was much smaller lines around the wheels. You need a bit more power, and to balance that out, we just had to duplicate the material, and there you go. So we'll call this car paint. Now this will be the metal, and we'll set the index to something crazy. You don't want it realistic. And what we'll do from there is we'll grab, I believe I made this black, didn't I? Well, not completely black because that's never nice, but somewhere like that. And we'll just slap on, in fact, I'll skip the surface imperfection because that's not important right now, but I will include the surface imperfections I used. Now, of course, you have black ones and white ones of each of them. If you want it to, I believe it's, if you want the surface imperfections to be rough, it's white, and if you want it the other way around, where the whole car is rough and the surface imperfections is what's underneath, then it's the black one. It could be the other way around. I don't know, mess with them. But yeah, I used the white one, so I'm guessing I got it the right way. But we'll keep that there, and we'll grab a mixed material for later and another material. Now, what we're going to do here, of course, is grab our emission. We'll plug the black body emission straight into there. I don't know if it matters which of these you use, but I think you just get a bit more light coming off of the black body. And we'll power this with a RGB. Now, for the sake of the tutorial, why don't I use a orange one, make it different. Now, you can see how quick this is. Material 2, material 1, dirt map. Now I'm going to slap the dirt map in there, and we're going to grab our mix. Oh yeah, quickly, let's just go back in here, set this down. I don't want to slap it on there and then for it to just shoot us in the face. So we'll put that on our body tag. Now, of course, this car I did grab off of a website, and actually looks so sick in orange. And there's tons of car models about. A lot of them, the free ones, unfortunately, you can't use commercially, so you're just going to have fun with them like I did. Or there is some about, which I will link, which you can use commercially as well. So it's a lot of fun to mess around with these. They usually have texture tags and stuff, which comes in helpful. And back when I used to do all my work for free, I used to have so much fun with cars. Because it just you skip the modeling process and you can just create cool paints, cool animations, very, very quick, and it's a lot of fun. Why do I have that there? Right. So as you can see, it looks a bit messed up right now. Let's name this quickly to glow. Now this is the dirt map talking right now. So we'll set the strength to about 2. You honestly don't need much. We'll set the details to about 1.5. That's not enter. And the radius, you can see if we bring the radius up here, it's going to get rid of those lines and really just sort of take over the car. So the radius is what we need to be careful with. And then if you bring the tolerance up a little bit, that's kind of where the magic happens, because the tolerance cuts off a lot of those details you don't want, and it just sits in the midst of these lines. If you invert it, you actually get more lines, funnily enough. Okay, invert it. If it works, it works. There you go. Maybe put the tolerance up a bit more. I'm guessing I did have that inverted the first time then. Yeah, I did. There you go. So invert it. Apparently it gives you more lines. Usually I was expecting the entire car to go orange and the lines to just go normal, which is what usually would happen. I don't know why it's doing this, but there you go. So you can see it's that simple. We have it. It's done. Now I do have my post-processing turned off right now, because that's kind of where the magic happens, and I will show you how cool the glow will look once we apply our post-processing. But what we're going to do now is you have all I've really just set all these tags, and of course we slap this one on the trim of the car, and then what's this one? The lights. That goes in the lights. Inside trim, the grille, and another trim. Now once that's all on there, and we have the badges as well, and we'll just put our new material on there, and now you can see the car is looking pretty Tron-ish, if you will. And now for the tire texture. Unfortunately it crashed then, so I just had to do the entire thing again, but whatever. Apparently duplicating the materials causes Mr. Unstable Octane over here to crash. So we'll duplicate this and we'll get started on the wheel material. Now make sure you duplicate everything, not just the mix, and we'll go and apply this to our wheels. And wheels, cool. And now there's a little trick in the black body emission to get this to work. So we'll call this wheel map, wheel paint, wheel texture, whatever you want. Bring down the radius a little bit, bring the strength up to about 5. And you can see something happening on the edge, but what we have to do is go on our black body emission and click double-sided. Now that's probably because the dirt map is just in areas enough emission can't get out, so we have to stick that on there just to let Octane know that look, we want this to glow as well. And you can just sort of toy with this until you get something a little more slipstream, which is what we want. Turn off invert normal and you get less detail, which is kind of what we want here because it's a small little space. We've got a line going across the middle of the car here, which I don't like, so I'm going to try and get rid of with our tolerance, radius, details. Okay, it's going. Now, onto lighting. Lighting this scene was very difficult because I wanted to get something that could carry reflections as well as the main source as being the emission. which was difficult, and I ended up going with a HDRI, this night one, and it's a pretty poor quality HDRI, but it gave me the light I needed. I have no clue where it is, so I will upload like where I got it from. So I will put it on Mediafire, and I'll put it in the description, just to save you the hassle of having to find a HDRI that serves you the same way. I bumped the power up a bit, and I added a color correction, and I messed with the hue and the saturation, the gamma, the contrast, just to get it exactly where I needed it to be. And then of course I added another sky, visible environment, black, just so any of the shots like this, you wouldn't see the background. Now, as you can see how ugly that post is, let's get on to the post. So, I didn't use much focal depth or anything, but I did use a lot of bloom. I'm actually gonna go into our light material here because it's getting on my nerves, and I'm gonna, what will I do? I'll do that right now. Now you can see how cool this looks, the streaks coming off of it. I used a lot of bloom just to really get it to hit the scene, and I used a lot of glare, which isn't something that plays a huge factor in my workflow. But I set the glare amount to 1, and then I put the glare angle to 0, because usually it would be something like this. Now if you set that to something like 90, you could get some cool effects as well. Now because Tron is a very geometric thing, especially if you've seen the old movies, and if we go into a camera angle like this, you can see how it plays, because the 90-degree camera angle along with the very straight glare really serves the scene and what you're going for here. And I put the spectral intensity way up. You can see that's giving me a bit more orangeness, and if you play with these, I was getting some really Tron-like effects. Just sort of, especially if you see it on, if you watch the old movie, you'll see what I mean. There's just sort of this weird RGB inside the colors, which is like this. The oranges are very bouncy, and that helped achieve that a lot. So if you try that, you get some really cool results. And of course, on the camera imager, I had to do something to darken the scene, so I used this DCC blah 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 _5. It's down here, there, and I put the exposure way down, and I put the gamma at 1. And I messed with the hot pixels a little bit. I didn't have to. I probably could have got away with that a little bit higher. Saturation I left alone. That was all that went into it for the glow. But as you can see, it did really help the scene come along, and you'll see that even more when we have our floor material. Now onto the floor material. To take a quick look at it, I've broken it up. We have our main floor, which is made up of polygon textures and the surface imperfection I showed earlier. This texture is free on Polygon. Just have it's generic cracked blah blah blah. Have the diffuse, normal, displace, and I done the same thing I did on the car material with the surface imperfection being clamped down by a gradient, and that is what I'd done for the floor. And then we have our glow, which was a little bit of a pain to figure out, if you will. So what I done is, and I'll show you this quickly, I'll just go through it just to show you how this was done. We'll duplicate this, and do we want that? What was it? Went into right, and then I will actually just duplicate this as well. We'll create a new mix material. We'll go into that. We'll drag this in here, and we'll drag this in here as well. Now, we had the same thing, black body emission. Now, like I said, I inverted this because I done it the wrong way around in Photoshop. Shouldn't have to do that. An RGB spectrum again to give us the color we wanted on our floor. And then, if I can get this right, boom. Now, if we go back into our first material, you'll see here, I have this, and the reason I done that is because I wanted I wanted the grid on the floor to be a bit scratched up, not so perfect. That way it doesn't take away from the car. So if you put one of these on there and you clamp it down with a gradient just like that, and if we go back into our new one over here, we will do that. We will push this over here along with this. Now, of course, I think it's about time I put this material on the plane so we can see what's happening. There we go. And, oh, apparently, I knew that was going to happen as well. I don't know why I've done that. We put this in the amount here, like that. And you can see it's doing its thing. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Something like that. And you can see it's breaking up our grid. And just to fit this in, go up a bit more, turn the temperature that way a little bit, and we have it matching. I don't like how much that's being broken up. You can completely vary it. Of course, the further you get away, the softer it will be, which you don't want. But that's how I gained that effect. So I hope that was easy enough to understand. Just your kind of floor material, your glow, and you plug that straight into material 2, that into material 1, and you break that up via a surface imperfection or a noise, whatever you want to use in the amount. One other thing you would have noticed in the scene, which I'm sure a few of you, if not a lot, will be intrigued by, is the tracers following the car. Now, as I said earlier, I'll leave a tutorial to that because that's not what I want to focus on. But I will go over the material of how I done it. So if you do choose to do the tracers, then you can have a matching material. And of course I used 2 of them. It took a while to kind of get how I wanted it to be. And they were just sitting on the back of the car. Of course, if it was like the bike, then it would be 1 tracer and all of that. But the material was pretty basic. We had a glass material, 1.5 index, pretty sure fake shadows, no roughness, and we had the transmission set to what was the same color as the car. Now if we change that to a similar color here, the orange, and then we go in the RGB spectrum and we do the same thing there. Of course we have orange tracers now. It's just the same thing. I used a texture emission apparently. I don't think it matters, but you just control it with a dirt map. I had a pretty low strength just because I didn't want it to be too bright, and the radius just kind of going in enough so it kind of hits the middle, because that's what it looks like, and the glass material allowing it to be see-through but also kind of catching that tin. So as you can see, it's really basic. If you apply what we've done with the ground and with the car and that texture with the dirt map, then well, just with the car, then you'll get that very, very easily. It's not difficult, but I just thought I'd go over that in case you're wondering. And of course, it was if you know how to use the tracer, then you'll know what I've done. I used 2 null objects, rectangle, but I will link the tutorial. So I hope this renders you some cool results. I noticed there wasn't any tutorials on this, and when I found this little gem with the dirt map, I thought it'd be great to go over it, and I've had a lot of fun working with it over the past week or so. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please check out all my others. I'm working on more to come, and my tutorials have been doing well recently, so obviously I'm going to do more. My Discord's in the description if you want to join and just talk about art shit or ask me any questions. So it's my Twitter if you need to ask me anything at all more personally, whatever. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have fun with this, and I'll see you in the next one.
People wishing for a burner. You keep laying while you walking. You know that it's on the furnace. I bet you beat you. Had the bungee fucking no beat you. Riding for wallet. Keep laying while you walking. You know how this on the furnace. Timmy, Turner. Even with you for a burner. Tequila, right, walking. You know how it's on the furnace. Up at your beach. And they bought you fucking no